imagine that. It almost has this slight undertone, like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative. Oh, imagine that. Imagine that. That you're tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that.
Pay attention, y'all.
Like this slight undertone, like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative. Oh, imagine that.
It say DJ Twitch, final message.
Imagine that.
What did he mean?
That you're tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that.
Do y'all know what he mean? What he was talking about?
It almost has this slight undertone, like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative. Oh, imagine that. Imagine that. That you're tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that.
Do y'all know?
It almost
it
has
was a quote.
This slight undertone.
It was a quote that I used to talk about.
Oh, imagine that.
Some months back.
Imagine that.
And I typed it in.
You're tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine
this
that.
many seconds ago. And the quote was, you gotta imagine it
almost has this slight undertone
before you can believe
tired
it.
Of hearing this narrative. Oh,
then you can achieve it.
Imagine that.
That was my quote.
That you're tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that. It almost has this slight undertone, like you're a little tired.
Creepy, what happened in that room? I hope the truth comes out soon.
Imagine that.
I'm bringing the truth out.
That you're tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that. It almost.
Yeah, I hear somebody knocking.
Undertone, like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative. Oh, imagine that. Imagine that. That you're tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that.
I heard, hey buddy, too.
It almost has this slight undertone, like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative. Oh, imagine that. Imagine that. That you're tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that.
61 likes.
It almost has this slight undertone, like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative. Oh, imagine that.
Dorothy Abdul, you people never stop.
That you're tired of hearing that narrative.
Y'all annoying. Don't matter, we don't stop. We won't stop until we kill all of you. Revenge is a must.
Oh, imagine that. Imagine that. That you're tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that. It almost has this slight undertone, like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative. Oh, imagine that. Imagine that. That you're tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that. It almost has this slight undertone, like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative. Oh, imagine that. Imagine that. That you're tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that. It almost has this slight undertone, like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative. Oh, imagine that. Imagine that. That you're tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that. It almost has this slight undertone, like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative. Oh, imagine that. Imagine that. That you're tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that. It almost has this slight undertone, like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative. Oh, imagine that. Imagine that. That you're tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that. It almost has this slight undertone, like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative. Oh, imagine that. Imagine that. That you're tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that. It almost has this slight
what makes this,
like you're a little tired
while I'm recording this, his last comment.
Imagine that. That you're tired of hearing
the police killed. The police set this man up and killed him, and rigged up the investigation themselves.
Slight undertone, like you're a little tired.
Miami-Dade, when I was in Miami, Miami police was mentioning this murder before it even happened. Now the next thing,
it almost has this slight undertone.
Yeah, they was mentioning it to me. You know, I stayed in the police department. I stayed talking shit to the police. We stayed arguing, and they would stay saying little slick shit. But what they was saying was what they was gonna do in as far as retaliation and hits and murders that they was gonna commit.
Imagine that.
And I wasn't peeping on to it because it was just small chitter chatter little comments that wasn't adding up to nothing. And to it, they carried it out. But anybody who know me know you can go back and you will see that imagine that was me. This man was talking about me.
Like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative.
Twitch was talking about bringing me out.
Imagine that.
Letting y'all know about me.
That you're tired of hearing that narrative.
And guess what? The police was tired of me, meaning they wanted to kill me.
Undertone, like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative. Oh, imagine that.
They was tired of me.
Imagine that.
And that quotation
imagine that.
Was a reference to me, because I would say you gotta imagine something.
It almost has this slight undertone
before you can believe it.
Tired of hearing this narrative. Oh,
you gotta imagine what you want to do.
Imagine that.
Then separate the reality from the fantasy so you can believe it. Then
it almost has this
you can achieve it.
Undertone, like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative. Oh, imagine that. Imagine that.
That comment looked a little suspicious. I go through the comments because I know they be putting things in there. So what? So what? Twitch was killed.
Imagine that.
He was killed by the police.
Tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that.
More than likely, the city of Miami police and whoever they hired out. Why was Miami police involved? Because I'm the biggest threat to Miami police. I'm their #1 enemy. Next, Twitch is coming to expose them by bringing me out. I got over a dozen lawsuits against judges, prosecutors, police, and I got over a dozen more coming out. I filed a $100 million lawsuit against Publix grocery store, and the next day they released COVID-19 and closed down the whole city and locked the courthouse doors for over a year. I'm the one who been writing the music for 90% of the artists in America.
It almost has this slight
in America, nigga.
Like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative.
90%. If you made it to the top charts, you came through me.
Tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that.
Tyler Perry movies. He got a lot of that from me.
It almost has this
a lot of movies in Hollywood I was able to actually create myself. A lot of albums I wrote myself. And I ain't never received a penny for nothing or no credit. I told y'all right there.
Oh, imagine that. Imagine that. That you tired of hearing.
And then it started off, how do we know when and where this was?
It almost has this slight undertone.
To assume it was his last moment.
Oh, imagine that.
4 likes.
Imagine that. That you tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that.
My statement, Whipped Cream 66, was 7 minutes ago.
Has this slight undertone.
I told y'all, I know what I'm talking about.
Imagine that. Imagine that. That you tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that.
This my name right here. This not a coincidence.
It almost has this slight undertone, like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative. Oh, imagine that.
Okay, they got the stick. Look at the number. DACIA, whatever these last 4 letters, SDIY. Now go over here, you see what? 1861. That's 81 backwards for my birthday. And you flip the 6 upside down, and that'll be a 9. So that'll be 1981, which is the year I was born. 1981 is the year I was born. 75 subscribers, no videos. Then you got the word blessed and highly favored, which is me. I am highly favored, even though I'm broken in the jizzo. So I don't know if this is an imitator, an enemy, or a friend, or in between. Look at that skin. Life hacks. Gardening. Who talk about gardening often in Genesis? Amazon, pretty much nothing other than I made a lot of movies. Hair, pretty much nothing because I pretty much don't do nothing with it. BBLs, ass for Douglas. And yeah, I like BBLs. Organizations, whatever she got in there. Tools, cosmetics. Dogs, which is God backwards. I deal with that often. Decor, got no clue. And crafts, that can be anything.
Like this slight undertone, like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative. Oh, imagine that. Imagine that. That you're tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that. It almost has this slight undertone.
I'm gonna search his
like
account if it ain't been deleted.
Oh, imagine that. Imagine that. That you're tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that.
So Twitch got their heads up. DJ Twitch got their heads up, y'all. I guarantee you about me. I guarantee you. And he was coming. And they killed him. Cause I'm listening.
This slight undertone, like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative. Oh,
imagine that. And it sparked my memory of me used to always quoting that in one of my quotes. And I know the number one person who tired of my ass, if y'all follow my social media account, y'all know who it is. The people who I keep my foot in their ass. The police.
That you tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that.
And them being tired of hearing that narrative.
It almost has this slight undertone.
That meant
like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative. Oh, imagine that.
That meant they was trying to get rid of me. And guess what?
That you tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that.
They tried to kill me in Miami too.
It almost has this slight
after they stabbed me up in Cleveland, where I'm going to court now. They tried to kill me in Miami.
That you tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that.
While I was headed to court, a couple times.
It almost has this slight undertone, like you're a little tired.
So that proves that the police was putting hits out, and that he would have known, considering he around all these elites that's gossiping, whispering. So he had somebody in his pocket that was telling him the inside scoop.
Oh, imagine that. Imagine that. That you tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that.
The police put his phone on airplane mode, so they wouldn't know where he was at.
Imagine that.
And then they gave him back the phone instead of throwing it away. So it won't make it seem like it was a robbery, and then people want to investigate. So they gave him back the phone and forgot to take it off of airplane mode.
That you tired of hearing that narrative.
Or just didn't care no more. Niggas need to grab them hotel workers up and put their ass on a little vacation somewhere in the house of horrors so they can start talking.
Imagine that. It almost has this slight undertone, like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative. Oh, imagine that. Imagine that. That you're tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that.
Look, they throwing depression around. That's the thing that they was
undertone, like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative. Oh,
that they use about me. Mentally ill, Douglas. You have mental illnesses. You got problems. And they use that so when they kill a nigga, they can say, oh, he committed suicide because he was mentally ill. But they didn't kill me because Twitch got in the way. DJ Twitch got in their way.
It almost has this slight undertone.
And probably was letting him know he ain't gonna let it go down like that. He got dirt on them. So they killed him because they wanted to kill me. I guarantee y'all. Y'all just seen me rolling through the comments.
Like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative. Oh, imagine that.
And run across my name.
Imagine that. That you're tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that. It almost has this slight undertone, like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative. Oh, imagine that. Imagine that. That you're tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that. It almost has this slight undertone, like you're a little tired of hearing this narrative. Oh, imagine that. Imagine that. That you're tired of hearing that narrative. Imagine that.
Hey, y'all know damn well he was killed. And you can't say the police wasn't involved, because what regular street criminals can get the coroner to thwart the whole investigation of a murder that was done by street criminals? Nobody, other than the police themselves. That was a police coroner investigated it and said it was a suicide. Nobody even looked at this lady work and her credibility. And if she ever been written up, anybody ever made complaints on her in the years she been working, if she made any questionable decisions like this before in the past. And not just what was proven to be misconduct by her, because the people in the community will make the complaints and then the complaints will fall on deaf ears. We want to know if people made these type of complaints, period. And we gonna make the determination on this bitch credible, which she probably ain't. It's time for niggas to go ahead, take these motherfucking devils, and just like they put us in prison, torture chambers. I think Adolf had a good point when he was dealing with in Germany, the way he was handling the Jews. It wasn't so bad after all. If innocent Jews was caught up in the rapture, hey, God even said in the Bible, innocent family members gonna get caught up all the way down to like the 7th generation from what the forefathers do. That's just what it is. Casualty of war. Sorry, but hell, your granddaddy, mama, daddy did it. These Jews, these Ashkenazi Luciferians is out of control. They killed this man. This man was riding with me. He damn near looked like me. And I remember the police talking about killing him. And I promise y'all I remember that. I just didn't put it together because it was just little slick little words they were saying under their breath. And you know, I always had something back to say. And it's going, and as I hear more, it's going to refresh in my memory. I don't want to just start blurting out things. I want to